They say you're quiet, mysterious, a little distant, and maybe you are. But there's more to it, isn't there? It's not just that you don't speak much. It's that your mind never stops speaking. You live in a world inside, deep rivers of thought, images, symbols, meanings, all flowing just beneath the surface. If you've ever felt like you were watching life from behind a glass window, sensing everything but touching nothing, this isn't just introversion. This might be what Carl Jung warned about, because not all silence is peace, and not all reflection leads to wisdom. Jung believed that some people are born with a psyche tuned inward, highly intuitive, deeply imaginative, and often misunderstood, but he also believed this gift came with a shadow, a danger, a slow, quiet erosion of self that begins when your inner world becomes more real than the outer one, and if you're not careful, it can consume you. Jung called this archetype the introverted intuitive type, the person who sees the world not as it is but as it could be, or as it symbolizes. These are the poets, the prophets, the dreamers, but also the ones most likely to fall into despair, most likely to disconnect, most likely to be trapped not by society but by their own mind. He described them as having visions that feel prophetic, dreams that feel more vivid than waking life, an uncanny ability to spot patterns not just in people but in the soul. They don't need to be told what's wrong, they can feel it, they can sense it. But here's the dark warning: this deep perception can become a prison. You start to live in symbols, you fall in love with potential, you avoid the noise of life because it feels too shallow, too loud. You withdraw first emotionally, then spiritually, then socially. Until one day, you're no longer in the world at all. You're just watching it from the edge of your own mind. Jung saw this happen over and over in his patients. Intelligent, sensitive inward types who seemed to wither, not because the world was cruel, but because they never stepped into it. And that's the paradox. You see too deeply, you feel too much. But instead of anchoring that sensitivity into reality, you let it drift into fantasy, into abstract meanings, into inner monologues that never end. So what begins as a gift, rich intuition, becomes a curse, a slow death by introspection. You replay conversations in your head 100 times. You sense energies others don't. You look at a sunset and think about death. You hear a song and feel a lifetime. But when someone asks, "How was your day?" you say it was fine. You live two lives, the outer one which is quiet and forgettable, and the inner one which is vivid, sacred, and lonely. And Jung warned, if you never reconcile the two, you will fracture. The psyche will split. You'll become haunted not by ghosts but by your own unlived life. This is not just theory. You've probably met someone like this, or you are this. Someone who knows too much about the world to enjoy it, who craves connection but finds most people exhausting, who wants to be seen but hides the moment someone looks. You spend hours analyzing motives, patterns, cosmic meanings, but forget to return a phone call. You write poetry in your head but never share it. You daydream of deep conversations, but small talk drains your soul. And in that silence, the danger grows. Jung said the intuitive introvert must be careful not to confuse depth with avoidance. Because the truth is, a wound can feel deep but still be a cage. And the mind can explore every corner of the soul and still miss the point of living. So what's the answer? It begins with something terrifying: coming back to earth, leaving the astral plane of ideas and symbols, touching something real, making a call, speaking up, being awkward, being seen, because the psyche doesn't grow by imagining alone. It grows by integration, by contact, by conflict and renewal. And no amount of inner vision can replace a single moment of shared reality. Jung didn't ask the intuitive introvert to become extroverted. He asked them to embody, to let their inner life flow into the outer world, to write the book, to sing the song, to risk the imperfection of doing instead of the safety of dreaming. You don't have to change who you are, but you do have to enter the world again. Because the shadows you fear inside are not your enemy. They are your guides. They are calling you not to hide but to return. And if you don't, your gifts will rot into regrets. So here's the truth. No one tells the intuitive introvert, your sensitivity is not a burden. But if you don't learn to express it, it becomes one. It's time to stop watching life from the window. Open it. Step through. Speak. Risk. Engage. Because you weren't born to observe life. You were born to live it. And maybe this is you. You've always felt older than your age, haven't you? Like you were born carrying an invisible knowledge, but with no instructions for what to do with it. As a child, you might have sat alone drawing, writing. staring at clouds while others played. You didn't feel lonely, not then. You felt full, full of something you couldn't name. But as the years passed, that fullness began to ache. Not because it disappeared, but because no one else seemed to see it, or feel it, or understand why you couldn't just be normal. This is the intuitive introvert's silent tragedy, being filled with insight and starved of resonance. Jung knew this. He saw that the danger wasn't madness, it was disconnection. A kind of soul-deep fatigue from walking through a world that never seems to speak your language. And so you withdraw. You become a ghost in your own life. You smile at the right moment, say what's expected, but inside you're miles away. Wandering in metaphors, analyzing every glance, feeling the weight of unspoken meanings. And if this goes on too long, something breaks. The imagination turns dark. The inner world, once magical, becomes suffocating. You don't just think deeply, you drown. Jung didn't want this for you. He believed that your inner world wasn't the problem, your isolation was. That the only way to survive being this open is to make your sensitivity useful. Turn it into art, turn it into service, give it form, because the moment your inner voice has a voice outside, the healing begins. You were never meant to stay hidden. You were meant to translate the invisible. So where do you go from here? You've spent your life cultivating the inner world. It's where you've always felt safe. While others chased parties, careers, or approval, you wandered through archetypes. You studied myth, dreamt of meaning, and questioned everything. But now you're beginning to sense that even the richest inner garden can become overgrown. You're not lost in the world, you're lost in yourself. And that's exactly what Jung warned about. He saw the intuitive introvert not as a weak type, but as a deeply gifted one with one tragic flaw. They confuse perception for participation. Just because you understand life doesn't mean you're living it. Just because you can name the feeling doesn't mean you've felt it through. You've become a witness to your own story. You think in third person. You analyze your sadness before you let it arrive. You intellectualize your pain before your body gets a chance to cry. You look at your life like it's a poem waiting to be interpreted rather than a fire waiting to be lived. And here's the thing. Jung didn't want you to stop being an introvert. He wanted you to stop being disembodied. He wanted you to step back into your flesh, your breath, your voice, your presence. Not to abandon your gifts, but to anchor them. Because when intuition is not grounded, it spirals. You start to lose touch with time. You misread people. You see omens in everything, in dreams, in numbers, in glances. You wait for signs instead of making decisions. You wait for the perfect moment, the perfect words, the perfect alignment, and life slips by. The irony is painful. You see more than most, but you act less than many. You might spend days thinking about someone you never call. You may write letters you never send. You hold stories in your bones that could change lives, but they die on blank pages. You are a well of insight, and no one is drinking. Jung believed this kind of repression creates neurosis. Not because you are broken, but because you're dammed up. You're not releasing what you know. You're not expressing what you feel. You're not letting your soul move. And so the energy turns inward and attacks. You start to question everything. Your worth, your path, your sanity. You replay every conversation, every mistake. You overthink, then overthink the overthinking. You spend hours on the edge of action but never leap. Jung saw that behind this paralysis wasn't weakness, but fear. Not fear of failure, but fear of exposure. Because for someone who lives inside, the outer world is terrifying. It's unpredictable, it's messy, it doesn't respect nuance, but that's exactly why you must return to it. Not to become average, not to fit in, but to bring something sacred into it. Your insight isn't meant to be locked in your head, it's meant to illuminate. Your ability to sense pain, longing, depth, that's not a burden, it's a lantern. But if you never light it, the darkness remains. You might say, but no one understands, and you're probably right. Most won't, but someone might, and that one person is worth it. That one connection, honest, raw, imperfect, might be the lifeline that turns your vision into change. Because the danger isn't that you're misunderstood. It's that you stop trying to be understood. It's that you retreat so far inward, even you can't find yourself anymore. Have you noticed it? The more you suppress your truth, the more the body aches. The more you avoid conflict, the louder the dreams. The more you bury desire, the more it distorts into resentment, into obsession, into despair. Jung said that what you resist not only persists, it grows teeth. So you must face it, not alone, not all at once, but gently with reverence. Like coaxing a wounded animal out of hiding. Your soul doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be expressed. This is the beginning of integration. It's not about killing the inner world. It's about marrying it to the outer one. It's about letting your imagination touch something, letting your dreams become action, letting your silence find sound. And it starts small. Maybe it's writing the thing you're afraid no one will read. Maybe it's telling someone what you really feel. Maybe it's crying without needing to explain why. Maybe it's failing publicly and surviving it. This is what Jung meant by individuation, becoming whole, not by becoming someone else, but by uniting the parts of you that were always meant to be one, because you're not here to observe the world like a scholar in a tower. You're here to shape it, and the only way to do that is to enter it bruised, sensitive, terrified and true, and the world needs that truth, because in an age of noise, your silence is powerful. In a culture of surfaces, your depth is revolutionary. In a world of performance, your sincerity is medicine. But none of it matters if you hide. You can be the most intuitive person in the world, but if you never act, never speak, never risk, your gift dies with you. And the saddest part, no one will ever know what was lost. Think about this. When was the last time you let someone really see you? Not the curated version, not the pleasant, composed you, but the one that trembles, the one that burns, the one that longs. You've been so good at protecting yourself that you've forgotten what it feels like to be vulnerable. And yet that's the doorway. Vulnerability is how the inner world breathes. You've built a fortress of meaning, a sanctuary of ideas. But even temples need windows. What if you let a little air in? What if you stopped waiting to be fully healed before you showed up? What if you believed that being misunderstood doesn't mean being wrong? What if your brokenness was the most beautiful part of you? Jung didn't want you to abandon your mystery. He wanted you to share it, not explain it, not justify it. Just live it openly, awkwardly, and imperfectly. Because you will never be fully understood. No one is. But you can be felt. You can be known not in totality, but in essence. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. Your task is not to escape the world. It's to carry your inner light into it, and let it flicker where someone else thought there was only dark. There's a moment, subtle, almost invisible, when the balance tips. You're sitting in your room, maybe with a book, maybe just staring out the window, and a thought passes through. What if I never get out of this? You don't mean the room. You mean the loop, the inner loop, the thoughts, the overthinking, the waiting. You keep thinking you're preparing, but what if you're just hiding? Carl Jung saw this loop not as laziness, but as a defense. When the outer world feels too harsh, the inner world becomes a cocoon. But the longer you stay in it, the more it becomes a coffin. This is the shadow side of intuition. You anticipate rejection before it happens. You imagine what people are thinking and then respond to that fantasy instead of reality. You build entire emotional narratives around a glance, a tone, a text left unread. You fall in love with people's potential and then mourn a breakup that never really happened. Because your mind is so powerful, it creates a world within a world, and you live there more than you live here. And this is where Jung's dark warning becomes urgent. He said that when the intuitive introvert disconnects too long from reality, the unconscious retaliates. It pushes back. It begins to speak in symbols more extreme, more fragmented. Nightmares, obsessions, fantasies of power or despair. Even psychosis in its most severe form can arise when the inner world eclipses the outer one entirely. You see, the psyche is not meant to be hoarded. It is meant to flow. When you stop engaging with life, the energy doesn't disappear. It implodes. That's when anxiety rises for no reason. When you can't sleep but feel exhausted. When the dreams turn dark and the body grows heavy. Your intuition is screaming not to warn you, but to wake you. And if you don't listen, the unconscious will find other ways. Jung believed that the path back begins not with answers, but with anchoring. You don't need a new insight. You need a new rhythm, something that returns you to your body, something that returns you to presence. Walk, breathe, eat slowly, touch the ground, speak out loud. It sounds too simple. It feels almost insulting. But the intuitive introvert doesn't need more ideas, they need contact. They need earth. The danger of your type is not emptiness, it's disembodiment. You can quote young Rumi Nietzsche. You can describe your childhood trauma like a therapist, but can you say I'm lonely and let yourself cry? Can you say I want to be loved and not flinch? That's the real edge. You've spent so long decoding the human condition that you've forgotten you're human too. You bleed, you ache, you need. And no amount of analysis will protect you from that. And maybe it's time to stop trying. Jung believed that healing comes not from understanding the wound, but from relating to it, befriending it, letting it speak in ways you've never allowed, through art, through breath, through clumsy conversation. Because here's the truth, no one wants to admit you don't need to fix yourself before you connect. In fact, connection is often what allows the fixing to begin. Your darkness is not a warning to others, it's an invitation to depth, to truth, to shared humanity, but only if you stop filtering it. The danger of the intuitive introvert is over-curation. You show people only the finished thought, the polished insight, but what they long for is the mess, the real, the half-formed sentence that trembles with truth. You think you're protecting them from your intensity, but maybe you're just protecting yourself from being misunderstood. And in doing so, you ensure that no one really sees you at all. What a tragedy that would be, to go through life with so much beauty inside you and die unpublished, unspoken, untouched. You don't have to pour yourself out to everyone, but someone somewhere is waiting for the very thing you're afraid to share. And they will never find it if you don't give it form. So speak, even if your voice shakes. Show your art, even if it's strange. Say I miss you, say I wish you knew me, say I'm here. That's what Jung meant by integration, taking the sacred inner world and weaving it into the fabric of life. You're not here to impress, you're here to express. And expression is messy. You will be misunderstood, you will feel exposed. But that pain is cleaner than the ache of hiding. It's the pain of birth, the birth of the authentic self, the part of you that doesn't just think about life but finally dares to live it. So take the risk, not all at once, not with everyone, but somewhere. Begin with the smallest act of rebellion against the cage of your own mind. Wear the shirt that feels too bold. Send the text you've been rewriting for weeks. Sit across from someone and say the thing you've never said, even if your throat tightens. You don't need a perfect moment. You need a real one. Because it's not the depth of your mind that will save you, it's the courage to reveal it. You think no one else feels this way, that you're too strange, too sensitive, too deep. But you're not alone. The world is full of quiet souls waiting for someone else to speak first. Be the one who speaks. Let your intuition guide you not just inward but forward. Let it tell you where the love is, where the truth lives, where the next risk might lead to resurrection. And when the fear rises because it will greet it like an old friend, say I see you, but I'm choosing life. Because that's what this is really about. Not healing, not transcendence, just life. Raw, sacred, flawed, beautiful life. And the choice to finally live it fully, vulnerably, and awake. There comes a point when the mirror stops reflecting and starts demanding. You've spent years looking inward, searching, dissecting, understanding. You've traced your pain to its origin, studied your shadow, read every theory, decoded your dreams. But something in you knows, the time for understanding has passed. The time for becoming has come. And that's terrifying. Because the mind can be a sanctuary, but it can also be a shield, a way to stay safe, a way to stay distant from the one thing intuition fears most: embodiment, showing up, being seen, being touched, misunderstood, maybe even hurt. Jung's final warning to the intuitive introvert was not about intellect or even emotion, but about incarnation. The soul must enter the world, not just as thought, but as form. He called it individuation, but what he meant was wholeness, not perfection. Not enlightenment, wholeness. And wholeness doesn't come from knowing more. It comes from being more. You were never meant to live in fragments. You are the dreamer and the doer, the prophet and the person, the inner voice and the outer action. And until those two lives become one, you will never feel at peace. So ask yourself, what have I withheld from the world? What have I hidden that was meant to be shared? What part of me is still waiting for permission? You won't find answers in books, not anymore. You'll find them in movement, in speech, in risk. Write the thing, call the person, try the new path, step onto the stage even if your voice breaks. That breaking is not weakness. It is the birth cry of your real life beginning. There is a kind of spiritual malnutrition that comes from too much knowing and not enough doing. Jung saw this in the intellectual elite of his day, people who understood everything but lived nothing, who could diagnose the psyche but never surrendered to love, who studied the shadow but never held a hand through the night. You are here to hold the hand, and you can't do that from a distance. You are not too much, you are not too quiet, you are not too deep, you are necessary, but only if you arrive. So arrive, late, scared, awkward, but whole. Arrive to your own life. Let the strange beauty you carry become visible. Let the thoughts become words. Let the ache become a song. Let the solitude become a bridge. No one is asking you to be extroverted, but they are asking you to be present. Not the version of you inside your head, the real you. The messy, intuitive, sensitive, quietly powerful you. And yes, it will hurt. Yes, people won't understand. But some will, and they are waiting. They are waiting for someone who speaks their language. The language of soul, of silence, of depth. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But that is not a private journey. You become who you are not just by looking inward, but by offering yourself outward. So let this be your turning point. You've traveled the corridors of your mind long enough. You've faced the shadow. Now face the sunrise. Don't just know your truth. Live it. Don't just sense your power. Embody it. Don't just dream of love. Risk it. The world doesn't need more observers. It needs witnesses. It needs you not as a phantom thought, but as a fully breathing presence. Step into the room. Take up space. Speak. Move. Offer. Be seen. Because you were never meant to be a ghost in your own life. You were meant to be fire. You were meant to be wind. You were meant to be human. And yes, you will still doubt. You will still retreat sometimes. That's okay. That's part of being you. But let the return be quicker. Let the silence be fertile. Let the solitude feed something that blooms in the light. Because it is not selfish to share your soul. It is sacred. And somewhere, someone is waiting for the permission your courage will give them. Be that permission. Be that light. And walk forward not perfectly, but fully. Fully awake. Fully here. Fully you. And if you fall, fall forward. Fall into the life you've been preparing for all along, because even your pain, your overthinking, your time alone, none of it was wasted. It was all part of the gestation, the long, slow alchemy of becoming. So don't regret the years you spent in silence. They gave you vision. But now let the vision speak. Let your feet carry it. Let your hands build it. Let your voice, trembling though it may be, carry that truth into a world starving for depth. Because we are all secretly waiting for someone who doesn't just parrot wisdom but embodies it, waiting for someone who isn't afraid to sit in silence and still radiate presence, waiting for someone like you who feels everything, you who notices what others miss, you who cries at songs and sees stories in faces and dreams in color, you who thought you were too broken to belong when all along you were simply tuning to a frequency this world forgets to listen to. But now it's time to turn up the volume. You don't have to scream. But you do have to speak. And when you do, something ancient will remember itself, because you are not just healing yourself, you are healing a lineage. Of quiet men, of sensitive women, of dreamers who died with their truth still inside them. You are the interruption, the one who breaks the cycle, not through force, but through truth. So stand up, open the window, and let the world meet you as you are, because this is what Jung meant all along. The shadow was never there to shame you. It was waiting to be walked with, not behind you, beside you, into the light.